Hey there, Commanders fan. If you're like me, passionate about our team, you're experiencing that mix of excitement and apprehension as the next NFL game approaches. I always try to stay optimistic, but this time we need to be realistic and acknowledge that we have reasons to be concerned. So, if you're here trying to understand what to expect from this matchup, stick with me until the end, because I'm going to show you the 4 main reasons why our Washington Commanders need to be on high alert. And of course, our last analysis today will be the most intriguing and detailed. Now, right off the bat, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, click that button and hit the bell. Here we talk about the Washington Commanders all the time, game analyses, predictions, and of course, that fan-to-fan chat. And you, fan, know how important it is for us to stick together at this moment. At the end, I want to know your opinion on a point that could be crucial in this duel against the Bengals, so start thinking about it. Let's go. First thing, let's talk about this uncomfortable feeling of facing a team that's thirsty for a win. The Bengals, who haven't won a game yet, are chomping at the bit. They started the season with 2 losses, and that puts enormous pressure on them. A team with Joe Burrow as quarterback and Chase as wide receiver won't want to end up 0-3 on the board. And you know what that means? They're coming at us with everything they've got. We beat the Giants last week, and that was great for morale. But playing away against a team with so much quality, desperate for a win, is quite a challenge. What worries me most, and I believe you should be aware of this too, is the fact that the Bengals can't afford to lose another game. They know that if they reach 0-3, their chances of staying strong in the Super Bowl race drop drastically. This will make them enter the field with an urgency that, honestly, can cause us problems. Of course, our team wants this win badly too, but we need to be prepared for an opponent that will literally have their backs against the wall. And that, my friend, is always dangerous. Now, news that left every Washington fan with a nagging feeling: T. Higgins is back. If you watched the previous games, you saw that our secondary had serious problems containing opposing receivers. In the first week, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin had a field day against our defense. And last week, the Giants rookie Malik Neighbors had a party with 127 receiving yards. This is not a good sign, and now we'll have to deal with a receiving core that includes none other than Chase and Higgins himself, who's returning at full steam. This guy is one of the best in the league, and the defense will have to be at its best to prevent Burrow from finding these targets easily. To make matters worse, the Bengals have more weapons besides Chase and Higgins. Last week, against the Chiefs, Andre Iosivas, a guy we didn't talk about much before, showed up scoring 2 touchdowns. This shows that Cincinnati's offense has depth and can surprise at any moment. So the burning question is, will our air defense be able to stop these guys? This is one of the big questions for Monday. If we can't adjust, it could be a long night for Commanders fans. And since we're talking about concerns, let's take a look at our aerial attack. Our passing game, despite some improvements in the last game, is still below what it could be. In the win over the Giants, we finally saw Jaden Daniels attempting more deep balls, which worked at times, but we're still far from a consistent aerial game. And this is something that needs to change, especially when we're about to face a defense like the Bengals, which held Patrick Mahomes to just 151 yards last week. And look, they even managed to intercept the guy twice. If they can do that to Mahomes, imagine what they can do to Daniels, who's still adjusting to the NFL rhythm. This is a point of extreme concern. And of course, we can't forget about Trey Hendrickson. This guy has been a real nightmare for opposing quarterbacks in recent years. He's already recorded more than 13 sacks in 3 of the last 4 seasons, and last week, he took down Mahomes twice. This puts tremendous pressure on our offensive line, especially the tackles. If we can't contain Hendrickson, Daniels will spend the whole night running from the pass rush. This is something that offensive coordinator Cliff Kingsbury will have to solve somehow. We'll need a balance between releasing the ball quickly and, at the same time, trying to stretch the field. Without this, it will be very difficult to keep the offense flowing. And look, I know Daniels is a tough guy, but if he keeps taking hits like in the first weeks, it could end up affecting his performance. Kingsbury has a big responsibility in finding a game plan that better protects our quarterback. The question is, will he be able to do this against a defense as aggressive as the Bengals? This is one of the big unknowns that will hover over Monday's game. Moreover, another point we need to keep an eye on is our offensive line. In the first 2 games, we saw how much the tackles struggled to hold off the opposing pass rush. And this, against a defense like the Bengals, can be fatal. The pressure on Daniels has to be minimized, because if he doesn't have time to think and make the right reads, the offense simply won't work. Kingsbury needs to adjust this line, and fast. We can't play an entire night with the quarterback on the ground. And speaking of adjustments, something I really hope to see is an evolution in our running game. In the first weeks, the ground game had flashes, but nothing that really made a difference. We need to establish the run to open up the passing game. Without this, we'll become predictable, and against a defense like Cincinnati's, predictability is synonymous with defeat. So, will we finally see our ground attack working as it should? I believe so, but we need consistency. Now, even though we're considered underdogs in this Monday Night Football, I'm going to give you 4 reasons to be optimistic. Stick with me until the end, and I promise you'll leave this video more confident about our chances. Before diving deep into the reasons, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell. We talk about everything related to the Commanders here, so you won't want to miss anything. Oh, and leave a like, because our team's morale depends on our fans too. Now, without further ado, let's get to the content. First reason to believe in victory. The Bengals are having serious problems stopping the run game. In the first 2 games, they allowed 319 rushing yards. That's a lot. Just to give you an idea, in Week 1, the New England Patriots ran for 170 yards against them. And in Week 2, the Chiefs added another 149 rushing yards to the tally. So if there's one thing Washington can exploit in this game, it's the running game. And let's face it, our ground attack is in great shape. Speaking of the running game, we need to talk about Brian Robinson Jr. The guy was a machine last week, rushing for 133 yards on 17 attempts. That's an average of almost 8 yards per carry. This season, the Commanders are averaging 176.5 yards per game and an incredible 5.4 yards per attempt. In other words, our ground attack is in full swing, and if Cincinnati continues to fail at stopping the run as they did in the first 2 games, we're in a great position to take advantage. But the best part is that we don't just have Robinson in our arsenal. We also have Austin Eckler, who's a threat both running and receiving passes, and of course our quarterback Jaden Daniels. Daniels, besides developing as a passer, has been causing a lot of problems with his own legs. He's already rushed for 132 yards this season, and with that we have 3 real threats in the backfield. This makes the Commanders' offense much more unpredictable, and against a defense that has shown difficulty against the run game, that's gold. And since we're talking about Jaden Daniels, let's move on to the second reason for optimism, the impact he can have in this game. Starting with a rookie quarterback is always a risk, we know that, but Daniels is showing that he has a lot of potential. In the first 2 weeks, he grew a lot as a passer, especially in the second half of the victory against the Giants. But what's really making a difference are his runs. Defenses simply aren't prepared to deal with how dynamic he can be when he decides to run. Now, Cincinnati has already faced 2 good quarterbacks in the first weeks, Jacoby Brissett and Patrick Mahomes. But Daniels is different. Mahomes is a spectacular athlete, of course, but Daniels has a combination of speed and mobility that brings another type of challenge. And this can play in our favor. The Bengals' defense will have to be alert all the time because he can both throw and run. This unpredictability is a huge advantage for our offense. Now, the third reason for optimism, the Bengals are dealing with some important injuries on the defensive line. B.J. Hill and Sheldon Rankins, who are 2 of the starting defensive tackles, missed Thursday and Friday practices. This is a big problem for them because without these guys, Cincinnati's front 7 loses a lot of strength. And we already know they're having difficulties stopping the run game. If they enter Monday's game short-handed, our chances of dominating in the ground attack grow even more. Moreover, rookie Chris Jenkins, who could be an option to replace Hill and Rankins, is also limited by injury. So while the Commanders come in with a rolling ground attack, the Bengals might be weakened right where they've been suffering the most. If everything goes right, we'll be able to run the ball well, control the clock, and take the pressure off Daniels so he doesn't have to throw all the time. This is the kind of game that can frustrate the opposing defense. And now comes the last reason for us to believe in victory. The Bengals' offensive line is faltering. In the first 2 games, they allowed 6 sacks. If there's one thing we know, it's that when the Commanders' pass rush clicks, it can be devastating. We have a very strong defensive line, and although we've only recorded 2 sacks so far, the pressure stats are good. If we can maintain this constant pressure on Joe Burrow, it can make a huge difference in the game's outcome. Of course, it's not enough to just pressure Burrow without being able to bring him down. Our secondary has already shown that it can suffer if the opposing quarterback has time to think and throw. So the pass rush needs to be effective. Clelin Ferrell has already gotten 2 sacks, and we'll need other players like Jonathan Allen and Darren Payne to show up too. If we can keep Burrow uncomfortable, we reduce his chances of connecting with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, who are 2 of the best wide receivers in the league. Now, let's be honest, fans. We know it's going to be a tough game, but with these 4 points, there's room for hope. The ground attack is on a roll. Daniels is growing as a quarterback. The Bengals are dealing with injuries, and our defensive line can do some damage. We have real conditions to surprise in Cincinnati. So, what do you think? Will the Washington Commanders be able to keep the ground game strong and dominate the clock? Will our defense pressure Joe Burrow enough to secure the victory? Leave your thoughts here in the comments and let's discuss it. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, what are you waiting for? This is the right place for you to stay on top of everything about the Commanders with analysis, news, and that fan talk. Click the subscribe button and hit the bell so you don't miss anything. And of course, don't forget to leave a like and share with other fans. Now tell me, with all these factors in play, do you think Jaden Daniels will be able to stand out in such an important game? Will our ground attack dominate once again? I want to know your opinion, so comment down below and let's debate.